मौत कोई मसला नहीं है हमारे लिए, जिंदगी मसला बन गई। इन हालात में जिंदा कैसे रहेंगे कि मोहम्मद मुस्तफ़ा सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के इश्क का इजहार हमारे लिए जुर्म हो? ये तो नहीं कर सकते। ऐसा कानून है जिसके नतीजे में हर पुलिस अफसर जिसको चाहे जिस वक्त चाहे एमडी को पकड़ ले और 3 साल के लिए उसके खिलाफ मुकदमा दायर कर दे। तो मैं तो हाजिर था, पर शुरू में मेरे दिल में यही जज्बे पैदा हुए और मैंने अल्लाह से अर्ज की, क्या खुदा तू गवाह है, अगर फांसी का फंदा मेरे लिए मुकद्दर है तो मैं खुदा की कसम उसको चूम कर फांसी पे चढ़ूंगा। लेकिन इसके नतीजे में आगे क्या हासिल होगा, जब इस पर मैंने गौर किया तो मुझे मालूम हुआ कि पाकिस्तान में खलीफतुल मसीह की जान की कुर्बानी इन हालात में पेश करना नहायत ही खतरनाक गलती है। इस वजह से कि मरकज वहां है, इस वजह से कि खिलाफत की इंस्टीट्यूशन वहां मौजूद है और इरादे बहुत ज्यादा बद हैं उनसे जो आप इस वक्त मालूम कर रहे हैं।
(26th of April 1984), I saw the first threatening dream that what is happening is a big thing. It's not an ordinary small accident which is going to take place. In that, although I didn't see anything to happen to me, but I saw something which told me that Qasr Khilafat will no longer be occupied by me, and the enemy will have a sort of threat over Qasr Khilafat which would make me leave that place. So I saw a very deadly and violent, as if intoxicated camel sitting on the top of Qasr Khilafat. This was a dream which normally one cannot imagine. One can see a bird or something, or a man, but if a camel who is supposed to be very vindictive and small-minded thing and who never forgets a revenge when it wants to take. So a very ugly-looking and threatening-looking camel was sitting on the top of Qasr Khilafat, and this is the first time I'm revealing this to people. To some friends and relatives, I think I related this to them. So that was the first. And then I saw a dream that in Pakistan, there is no peace left. Everybody is conspiring, groups are created, they're abducting people, and law and order is become totally ineffective. And criminals and gundas and these people like hooligans, they have taken practical command of Pakistan into their hands, and they are abducting people and nothing can be done about them. So that again was one step further to mentally prepare me that this country is no longer fit for the caliphate to work from this soil. Then, after a while, we heard the reports that the plan was to have me murdered under the supposed crime of this mullah's murder, and the mullah is safely deposited somewhere in some foreign country. Aslam Qureshi. He was appointed at Islamabad by Capital Development Authority Islamabad as an electrician, this Maulana Sahib. He has no record of having ever studied in any Islamic institute or school or madrasa either. On the 17th of February 1983, suddenly Aslam Qureshi disappeared. On 23rd of February, that is 6 days after that, a case was registered against me in the police station in Sialkot that he is the man under whose direction he has been abducted and possibly murdered. Then began the reports that it is a much deeper conspiracy than you think. It's not just a case of a mullah who is supposedly murdered, but it's a much wider conspiracy of destroying Ahmadiyyat and Khilafat. They have also planned for a sort of war-footing camps made during the wars. And in Rabwa, colleges and schools and institutions have been earmarked, as if the whole populace of Rabwa will be turned into prisoners. And everywhere, similar plans and conspiratorial actions are being contemplated. So all over Pakistan, they are going to go a big way to attack Ahmadis and take military action against them and do something drastic. So again, I could only turn to God for prayer. I still was not ready to leave the country just because if they had planned my murder, how could I run away from that? This was not the question. But from newspaper readings, I could surmise that they have the plan of attacking, suddenly raiding my residence, which is called Qasr Khilafat, and to smuggle some sort of loose evidence like a corpse, dead body or something, and dig it from under the floor and say, look here, this is the mullah. On the 26th February, 3 days after this, Maulana Abdul Qadir Ropudi, he said, if you appoint me and with me a Deobandi Maulana and maybe one Brelvi Maulana, within a matter of 2 months, we will trace him and produce him. And if I fail to do that, I invite the government to shoot me publicly in Minto Park, Lahore. Right? Who had abducted and from where they were intending to recover? This was made further clear later on by another Maulana, who is so-called Maulana, of course, Manzoor Chinoti. He declared that the matter is so simple. Arrest Mirza Tahir Ahmed, remove him to the torture cells in Qila, Lahore Qila, the castle of Lahore, and hang him upside down. Within a matter of a few hours, Maulana Aslam Qureshi will be in your hands. That was the tempo they were building against my image and in the image of Jamaat Ahmadiyya. You know, when I suspected that something is cooking against Ahmadiyya between the mullah and the then dictator of Pakistan, Ziaul Haq, instead of running away, I went straight to Islamabad and camped there for 7 days until the deputy commissioner of Islamabad, one of the deputy commissioners, I think it's divided into 2-3 areas, where I was residing, he sent me a very urgent message. It happened the day after I received the message through an SP from Ziaul Haq himself. That rest assured and sleep in peace, nothing would happen, no problem. This deputy commissioner said, my earnest advice to you is, for God's sake, return immediately to Rabwa, or it will be too late. Things will happen. A murder could be planned immediately, even there. So I inquired, why does he advise me? The person who carried the message said, he is not going to tell you anything, but he said, have trust in me. For God's sake, leave this place immediately. So I consulted Ahmadi. I said that maybe he has got some information and it's better to abide by his advice. After all, he seems to be, he had a good reputation of being a kind, thorough human being. So we took advice and I left. And 2 days after my departure, or 3 days after my departure, this was announced. This anti-Ahmadiyya ordinance was publicly announced.
And I immediately called a meeting of all the Ahmadi elders, whoever were available at the time, to reach Rabwa immediately. And the same night they reached, and we had a meeting almost lasting the whole night.
तो हज़रत साहब ने फरमाया कि तुम लोग ऐसे करो कि अब सबको इतला करो कि वो जुमे के लिए रब्वा आ जाए, और तुम वहीं ठहरना ताकि अगर कोई पीछे रह जाए तो उसको तुम साथ ला सको। तो मैं उस जुमे पर, जो फिर हजूर ने नहीं पढ़ाया, रब्वा में नहीं था। मैं उसके बाद शाम को यहाँ पहुँचा हूँ और रात को एक मुख्तसर कुछ मीटिंग में शामिल हुआ।
I stated before them the facts, the consequences of this ordinance. I told them that according to this ordinance, if I remain in Pakistan and declare myself to be a Muslim, which I can readily do, immediately this is they are waiting for. Immediately they would arrest me and put me behind the bar, and even if they don't conspire to do something, to have some accidents, taking place, they can at least keep me for 3 years. And the moment I come out, they would ask the same question. And again I would say, yes, I'm Muslim with the grace of Allah. Back. So how can I remain a Khalifa of Jamaatul Ahmadiyya, Khalifatul Masih, and operative at the same time? A working Khalifa of the Jamaat within Pakistan. It's impossible. So this story was in circulation, that they planned to first of all have me murdered, then they expected the Jamaat to strongly react against it, then to mercilessly murder and gun down, and no permission would be given for the institution of Khilafat to be for the Khalifa to be re-elected, and for the House of Representatives, which make the election of Khalifa, would not be permitted to meet in Rabwa or anywhere. Now imagine if that had happened. Then Khilafat, once broken, cannot be reinstated until a prophet comes. See? This was a very grave issue. All discussions having finished, everything said and done, everybody had in fact come with the strong advice that I must leave the country as soon as possible. When all this was decided, almost decided, I said, look here, I am going to accept your advice only on one condition. I am not going to change that condition. Do come whatever may. Number one, I will not go out of the country incognito. I'll wear my same dress, I'll wear my turban, and use the same passport. That is one condition. The second is that if between now and my departure I receive any intimation that I am required for any inquiry of any sort, then I will not leave. Because I said I don't want this blemish to be cast on an Ahmadi Khalifa, that he ran away from justice.
आखिरी जो हजूर ने नमाज मगरब पढ़ाई है सफ़र से एक रात पहले, उस नमाज मगरब के बाद हजूर जब जाने लगे तो जैसे होता है हम सब भी उठने लगे, तो हर सब खड़े हो गए, हजरत बैठ से सब बैठ के। उस पर हजूर ने फरमाया, मैंने आपको इसलिए नहीं बुलाया, इसलिए नहीं बिठाया कि मैं आपको तकरीर करनी चाहता, मैं आप लोगों को देखना चाहता हूँ। मेरी आंखें आप लोगों के देखने से ठंडी होती है, मेरे दिल को तस्कीन होती है, और खुदा की कसम किसी माँ को अपने बच्चे से उतना प्यार नहीं जितना मुझे आपसे प्यार है। ये हज़रत साहब ने चंद में कहे, हम सुनने की ताब, अब भी मुझे वो नज़ारा नज़र में आ रहा है, सुनने की ताब नहीं थी इसकी किसी। बस हज़रत साहब ये कह के चले गए और मस्जिद में देर तक कब आप रोते रहे।
So it was decided that I would leave on Sunday morning by car to Karachi, because by Monday the plane left early after midnight of Sunday. I moved from my Qasr Khilafat, the house of residence of Khalifa, to a cousin of mine, and spent the night there.
بلکہ دیکھیں میں رات کو میں اور میاں احمد
پگڑی ساتھ تھی ویسے کہ نہیں؟
اسی موٹر میں، پگڑی تو ساتھ تھی، ہم اسی موٹر میں جس میں آپ آگے لے کے گئے ہیں، ہم رات کو کوئی 11 بجے کے قریب پہلے چلے گئے تھے، حضرت صاحب پیکنگ وغیرہ کر رہے تھے، بیگم صاحبہ پیکنگ کر رہی تھیں، تو اس وقت حضور کو میں اور میاں احمد لے کے قصر خلافت سے میاں احمد اگلی سیٹ پہ بیٹھے، میں ڈرائیو کر رہا تھا، اور پیچھے حضرت صاحب، بیگم صاحبہ اور مونا، بی بی مونا اور بی بی طوبہ، یہ ہم حضور کو لے کے تو حضرت صاحبزادہ مرزا بشیر احمد صاحب کے مکان پہ آئے، جس میں مرزا صاحبزادہ مرزا حمید احمد صاحب رہتے تھے۔ ان سے ہم نے پہلے بات کی ہوئی تھی، ان کو بتایا نہیں تھا، صرف میں نے ان کو کہا کہ بھائی حمید آپ کا ایک کمرہ چاہیے ہمیں، تو انہوں نے مجھے ایک کمرہ دکھایا، وہ چھوٹا کمرہ تھا، اس میں اے سی لگا ہوا تھا، میں نے کہا نہیں یہ کمرہ نہیں، مجھے آپ کو بڑا کمرہ چاہیے۔ وہ کہنے لگے پھر میرا بیڈ روم ہے اس میں اے سی ہے، اور کمروں میں تو اے سی نہیں ہے، وہ لے لے۔ تو اس رات کو ہم پھر سب کو لے آئے، حضور نے پھر رات وہاں گزاری۔
حضور کے منظوری کے لیے جو پلان پیش ہوا وہ یہی تھا کہ ایک کانوائے اسلام آباد جائے، وہ رات کو ایسے وقت میں یا صبح کے وقت ایسے وقت میں روانہ ہو کہ لوگوں کے سامنے سے جائے، یہ بھی ظاہر ہو کہ خفیہ جا رہا ہے مگر لوگوں کو پتہ بھی چلے کہ گیا ہے، اور اس میں حضور کی جو نارمل گاڑیاں استعمال ہوتی ہیں اور جو نارمل حفاظتی عملہ ہوتا ہے وہ سب کا سب ان کو جائے، اس میں جائے اور وہ اسلام آباد چلے جائے۔ انٹیلیجنس والے اس کو فالو کریں گے، خود بخود اپنے عربے لگائیں گے کہ ہاں یہ اسلام آباد جا رہے ہیں، ہم کوئی اعلان نہیں کریں گے۔ صبح کی نماز میں اعلان کر دیا جائے گا کہ حضور کی طبیعت ٹھیک نہیں ہے، تو اب آپ نماز پڑھ لیں۔ نہیں، جھوٹ نہیں بولا جائے گا، یعنی فوراً جو آپ نے ایک آبجیکشن کیا سارے پلان میں وہ یہ تھا کہ میرے بارے میں کوئی جھوٹا اعلان نہیں کیا جائے گا، جھوٹ ہم نہیں بولتے۔ یہ اعلان کر دو اسی طرح سے کہ بس اجازت ہے نماز پڑھ لیں، یہ کہنے کی کیا ضرورت ہے کہ میں بیمار ہوں جبکہ میں بیمار نہیں ہوں۔
And we left early morning, not via the ordinary route going through Chiniot and Jhang, etc., but we moved in the direction of Sargodha and Islamabad,
To the north.
to the north. And at Lalia, there was a road jutting out in the direction of Jhang, which would connect us with the main road to Karachi. That was the plan.
کیونکہ اس سائڈ پہ چنیوٹ سے وہاں چنیوٹ جانا مناسب نہیں تھا، ان کا فیصلہ کہ وہ دیکھ سکتے آدمی کون جا رہا ہے، تو اس لیے ادھر سے یہ روٹ سلیکٹ کیا تھا۔
ادریس صاحب کی گاڑی سب سے آگے تھی، اس کے بعد وہ گاڑی تھی جو میں چلا رہا تھا جس میں حضور تشریف فرما تھے، وہ تھے،
اس کے بعد میں
پیچھے تیسری میں آپ تھے،
جی
بریگیڈیئر وکیل زمان،
میرے ساتھ بریگیڈیئر وکیل زمان صاحب،
ہاں یہ تھے،
ارون صاحب اور میرا چھوٹا بھائی سعید تھا۔
اور آپ کے پیچھے کس کی گاڑی تھی؟
آخری کار میں میاں مجیب ڈرائیو کر رہے تھے،
میں ڈرائیو کر رہا
آخری گاڑی مرزا مجیب الرحمان صاحب ڈرائیو کر رہے
میاں
تھے۔
مجیب ڈرائیو کر رہے تھے، میں تھا۔
بعض جب ہم لالیاں سے مڑے ہیں تو اس وقت ذکر آیا ہے کہ فجر کی نماز پڑھ لی جائے، تو وہ میں نے تکبیر کہی اور میں دائیں ہاتھ بیٹھا تھا، حضور بائیں ہاتھ بیٹھے تھے، تو گاڑی میں چلتے ہوئے حضور نے نماز پڑھائی، تو حضور نے وہ نماز پڑھائی تو اس کے بعد پھر حضور نے بعض دعائیں پڑھنی شروع کی ذرا اونچی آواز سے، تو وہ بڑی ख़ास दुआएं थीं हजूर को पर रिक्कत तारी हो गई, मेरी तबीयत पे भी रिक्कत तारी हो गई। और
Now, first surprising thing I tell you about this is that my second daughter, she saw a dream and told me, Abba, I have seen a very strange dream. And the dream tells me that we are going out somewhere in the cars, and at one place there is some road blockage or something, and we slow down. And there I see some beggars who are apparently beggars, but they're very tall, stout people, like as if they belong to army or police or something, and they're clad in big coats, and they behave like beggars. They ask for money. And when we reached that a long passage, it was impossible for us to maintain speed. We just crawled along. And there suddenly, we saw these exactly as she had seen. That reassured me. I knew then, with the grace of Allah, it's Allah's hand, He already has told us and forewarned us. And without this front man, he is the son of late Hazrat Chaudhry Asdullah Khan Sahib, the younger brother of Hazrat Chaudhry Zafrullah Khan Sahib. His son Idris was driving that car. Imagine. Suddenly he got a pile of 1 rupee notes, 100 notes, piled together and stapled together. He opened them like this and started throwing right and left. Unbelievable. And these so-called beggars, they were intelligence people. But they couldn't resist money. So instead of rushing towards me, they started collecting money. We spread them the money all along, And as they were busy collecting money, we just passed through.
उसके बाद हम एक जगह पर पहुंचे जिसका नाम मुझे इल्म नहीं है। हसन ने फरमाया कि यहाँ से खाना लेके जाना है, वो ढाबे वाला है।
ये हम एंटर हो गए थे सिंध में।
हाँ, सिंध में
एंटर हो गए थे जल्दी। जब हम वहाँ पहुँचे हैं ना, तो ब्रिगेडियर वकील ज़ुमान साहब आए कि हसन कहते हैं कि खाना, तो मैंने कहा जी खाना सारा हर मोटर में खाना, चाय, सैंडविच वगैरह सब पड़ा हुआ है कि नहीं? हजूर फरमाते हैं कि मैंने ड्राइवर होटल का खाना है। तो फिर मैंने और मियाँ मुजीब ने, हमने बर्तन भी नहीं थे क्योंकि खाना तो साथ लेके चले थे, सैंडविच टाइप। तो हमने वहाँ वो देगची ख़रीदी और चीज़ें ली, उसमें वो दाल और कुछ वहाँ खागीना बनवाया, उबले हुए अंडे डाले बीच में। तो वो मैं तो ब्रिगेडियर साहब से लड़ पड़ा ना कि आप मतलब रुक के सबको रोका हुआ है कि खाना लेने। कहने लगे मैं क्या करूँगा, सब कहते हैं सब फरमाते हैं कि
नहीं, हम चल पड़े
ड्राइवर। हाँ, आप चले गए, चल पड़े थे आगे। खैर हम पीछे फिर पहुँचे,
आप लोग वहाँ आ गए। फिर सखर जब हम पहुँचे हैं तो
नहर के किनारे,
मुझे ये इल्म नहीं था कि सखर में बाईपास बन गया हुआ है और वो नहर के ऊपर से इस तरह गुजरता है। तो वो जगह बड़ी खूबसूरत लगी। तो मैंने हजूर से अर्ज़ किया कि यहाँ रुक जाएं। हसन में हाँ यहाँ रुक जाओ। तो वहाँ हम रुक गए। फिर उसके बाद पीछे से कारें आती रही। सखर से आगे फिर कराची वॉज लीडिंग अस।
हाँ,
यस।
और उस पर जाते जाते फिर हम हैदराबाद वाले
मोटरवे
दरिया पर रुके हैं, जहाँ हजूर ने बाद लोगों के साथ मशवरे किए हैं। ये वहाँ रुके हैं?
नहीं, वहाँ
या उससे आगे कोई
टोल क्रॉस करके,
आगे क्रॉस करके जहाँ टोल
मलीर के करीब,
हाँ जहाँ टोल था ना वहाँ।
And then we reached at about 10:30, reached Karachi. And there my residence, I had not to live the night over, so some Ahmadi was organized. It was decided between the Jamaat and some Ahmadi that I would rest for a while at his house. And after eating food and just a little rest, we left for the airport because the plane, I remember, left at 12:30. So I had to be there just before in time. Now, they told me to come late. Said, there's no need for you to come early. They said exactly 5 minutes from the time of the departure of the plane, we will send our special car to fetch you from the VIP. Now, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis and also myself, in the old good days, were always offered VIP treatment, although they didn't agree with Ahmadiyya, but they had this, at least decency, that they had others, the whole worldwide community, they should show some respect. So, against that, no order had been issued, so I also went and waited in the VIP lounge for the car to come. And the car came exactly 5 minutes before 12:30. And it was sent back.
बल्कि एक थोड़ी सी प्रॉब्लम हुआ जो हमारे जिसने जान निकाल दी। एक मिलिट्री जीप आई, उसमें यूनिफॉर्म आदमी, स्टार लगे हुए, वो अंदर भागा। अच्छा। उतर गए। फारूक मुझे कहते हैं कि ये गड़बड़ लगती है कोई, तैयार हो? मैं कहा बिल्कुल तैयार।
Now, before that, I saw very mysterious activity going, people coming, immigration officer, the chief of that area at that time, he came in and walked, and when Ahmadiyya inquired, he said, no, there's no problem, it's okay. But I suspected, I told Asfa, my wife, that something is going on and the car has been sent. But I said, don't be afraid. Absolutely, because I know Allah has to take care of the Khilafat and He would not let anything happen to us. Be sure. So it went on and on until at 1:30, I was told that the car has again arrived. And in the previous case, they had told me that it was sent by mistake. The plane is delayed by 1 hour. While the fact was that they had refused to send me by that car, they had sent the car back, and the plane waited for me for 1 more hour. While normally they don't do it for passengers, The plane should have left me alone and gone. But this was a Pakistani officer who was commanding this whole situation. He refused to permit the plane to leave without me.
The airport.
He was in touch with them. Yes. I didn't see him on the airport, but he was commanding.
Yes.
He was in full command of the position. The Dutch officer had handed the case over to him. He still arrived once he came to England and met me. Of course, I was extremely grateful to him for his kindness and decency. So he's a brave man. He wouldn't permit the plane. He was the boss. So at 1:30, we left. The plane, of course, went to Geneva and from there on to Holland. And there we had to wait for a while. Then we came to London.
अच्छा आ गए हो? अच्छा साडी plan है वे कि we will be taking the next, not from the next plane, the next available plane at 12 o'clock sharp, it will leave here.
Around midday, Huzur arrived at Heathrow Airport, and by the grace of Allah, we had made all the arrangements, no problem, no difficulty, and the staff of the KLM on which the airline on which Huzur travelled, they were also available.
Now, other things happening, very interesting. Now I turn to them. Why was it delayed and what was the problem? Why were they so worried and why did they not stop me? The facts which came to be revealed later on are so strange. Immediately an inquiry was launched as to how on earth could Mirza Tahir escape. They said escape, despite the specific orders from General Zia that he should not be permitted to leave the country. Now this revealed some very interesting facts. And throughout you see the hands of Allah so clearly working that even only the blind cannot see, the rest should know, understand what was happening. During the hijrah, if it is blessed by Allah, these things happen. Eyes are blinded, people's minds are befogged, ordinary, simple things are ignored, and that is how it always takes place. It so happened, very interestingly, in 1983, my passport had run out, a year after my being Khalifa. And I went to the passport officer for renewal, and he asked me to wait for a few days, and then he renewed it and handed it over to me. But after I left, immediately he was plagued by the visits of various intelligence agencies. Why did you have this passport made? Didn't you know that he was prohibited from leaving the country? So if he were prohibited, why did you issue a passport? So then he remembered, he said, look here, I remember a letter being issued to me prior to the event of his issuing the passport to me. And early 1983, the letter was signed by Zia himself. The matter was taken so seriously that to his memory, we found out from him, the letter was signed by General Zia himself, and it said, Mirza Nasir Ahmed, the fourth head of the Ahmadiyya community, is not permitted to leave the country from any borders, by any means. Just a short, crisp order and signed. Now, I'm not sure whether it was signed by him or on his behalf by the officer, but the order, according to him, was conveyed and dictated by Zia himself. This view was further supported by a very highly placed Pakistani officer in the central government. He said, you know, what happened was that Zia dictated the order, and because he was used to relating with Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmed, my predecessor, so his name came automatically to him. And the stenographer wrote exactly as he dictated. He was the king, he was a demigod of the period. So this was what started all the problems.
Alhamdulillah.
For them. And the name was Mirza Nasir Ahmed. He said, but I suspected this mistake. And on my own, I repeatedly contacted, before issuing this passport, repeatedly tried to ring the Central Intelligence Bureau and try to find out from him if there was a mistake, it has to be corrected. And he said that it so happened that every time I rang, there was no response. The telephone always was engaged until I got tired, and I said, all right, to give the passport. Another thing, the same thing must have happened the night when I was leaving. The telephone kept ringing, nobody raised it, nobody lifted it. Normally it doesn't happen. So he had 3 days for his trial and no answer, so he said, all right, let it go as it is. So that is how the passport was issued to be. This is the passport copy. You see? The fourth head of the Ahmadiyya community. This was the passport I traveled. There is this stamp of my departure from Karachi airport. So these liars, these mullahs, Chinoti as well, they started, abusing me as a man who escaped from justice, incognito, disguised like a woman under a false passport. And how God's hand helped me out of this country is further supported by the view that I traveled all the way by car from Rabwa to Karachi during the broad daylight. Never changed my dress. My kafla was with me. And one of the agencies, perhaps the same Fuqara, who posed as Fuqara, they reported it immediately to the government. They said, we suspect, because they hadn't seen me clearly, because they were more interested in money. So they said, we suspect that Mirza Tahir Ahmed has left for Karachi by road. Now this is a certain positive report. it was processed in the center, and they said they must be fools who were saying that, because the 4 other agencies had reported to us that Mirza Tahir has left for Islamabad, perhaps to meet General Zia. So how could be all these 4 wrong? And so many people are witness to seeing a convoy going towards Islamabad. So he has to be wrong. And the only person who was right, he was considered to be wrong. Otherwise, from there to Karachi, from Rabba to Karachi, there were 750 miles of road, busy roads, which we covered. Any time they could have inquired, just written to any SP or DC, and he could have blocked our way and found out.
It was a great matter of disgrace, I think, for Ziaul-Haq, that during that period and with that kind of attitude, Hazrat Sahab should go through the VIP room after writing his name there and traveling first class. اور کس طرح شریف آدمی جانتا ہے. this is the way a gentleman travels.
میں نے 27 اپریل 1986 کی صبح کا وقت خواب میں یہ دیکھا کہ حضور اسلام آباد جانے والے ہیں اور ایک منی پاس میں جائیں گے جس کی ارد گرد حضور کے پہرے دار موجود ہیں اور جو سب کے سب آسمانی رنگ کی یونیفارم پہنتی ہیں اور ان پہرے داروں کی ارد گرد سرکاری پولیس ہیں. جب میں اس پاس کے قریب آ گیا تو میں نے حضور کو نہیں دیکھا اور یہ سمجھا کہ حضور تو ایب کے طریق اسلام آباد تشریف لی گئے ہیں اور پاس کے اندر تو صرف کچھ سامان موجود ہیں. پھر میں نے اسی پاس میں حضور کی الوداع کہنے کے لیے بیٹھ گیا اور پھر داروں کے ساتھ سفر کرنے لگا. کچھ سفر کر کے ادھر کیا اور پھر داروں نے مجھے کچھ پھال دیا. اس خواب سے میں سمجھتا ہوں چند باتیں جو میں نے حضور خدمت میں پیش بھی کی تھی. نمبر 1 یہ ہے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ جماعت حضور حفاظت فرمائے گا. نمبر 2 حضور سب کے سب انعام بھی فرمائے گا اور سب کے سب نہایت زیادہ ترقی بھی دیں گے انشاءاللہ تعالی.
نہ وہ تم بدلے نہ ہم طور ہمارے ہیں وہی فاصلے بڑھ گئے پر قرب تو سارے ہیں وہی فاصلے بڑھ گئے پر قرب